A waitress in a diner watched a little girl suddenly crumple to the floor and dialed the only number etched into her memory. Papa. The voice that answered was icy, authoritative, and sent shivers down her spine. Unbeknownst to her, she'd just reached the city's most formidable mafia boss. And now, his daughter wasn't about to let her out of her sight. The coffee pot slipped from Sophia's grasp, shattering across the greasy tiles of Mel's diner. It wasn't a case of clumsiness. Sophia Carter had been a fixture at Mel's for 6 years, and not a single dish had met an untimely end under her watch. Her hands were usually as steady as a surgeon's, even when life threw its worst curveballs. Even on days that dredged up the haunting memories, like the anniversary of her own daughter's passing. No, this was different. The coffee pot shattered because the little girl occupying booth number 7 had suddenly turned the color of grave dust and slumped face first into her bowl of tomato soup. Oh my God! Sophia's legs were already carrying her before her brain could catch up. She vaulted over the counter with a practiced ease, her well-worn sneakers crunching on the broken shards of ceramic. Somebody call 911. The only other patrons in the diner, an elderly couple engrossed in sharing a slice of pie, froze with their forks suspended in midair. The girl couldn't have been more than 8 years old. She had dark hair, skin as pale as porcelain, and was dressed in a private school uniform that probably cost more than Sophia's monthly rent. She had strolled in alone about 20 minutes ago, a detail that Sophia had found slightly unsettling. Kids that young didn't typically roam around this rougher part of Chicago on their own, especially not at 9 o'clock on a drizzly Tuesday night. Sophia had gently inquired if she was waiting for someone. The girl had simply nodded and quietly ordered a bowl of soup in a voice barely audible above a whisper. Now, the very same girl was unconscious, her petite body slowly sliding sideways across the worn vinyl of the booth. Sophia managed to catch her before she hit the floor. The girl's skin was clammy and disturbingly cold. Way too cold. Hey, sweetie, can you hear me? Sophia carefully laid her down, instinctively checking for a pulse. It was there, but faint and erratic. The girl's breathing was shallow and labored. Her lips were tinged with an alarming shade of blue. Sophia's long-dormant nursing training resurfaced as if it were ingrained in her very DNA. She'd dropped out of nursing school 8 years ago when Emma became ill. But some things, the critical things, you just never forget. She tilted the girl's head back, ensuring her airway was clear. She examined her pupils. They were dilated and unfocused. This isn't choking. This isn't an allergic reaction. This is cardiac. Did anyone call 911? Sophia yelled, her voice laced with urgency. The old man by the window fumbled with his phone, his hands trembling visibly. Sophia's mind was racing a mile a minute. She needed information. Medical history, emergency contacts, anything. The girl's expensive designer backpack sat abandoned in the booth. Sophia grabbed it without hesitation, emptying its contents onto the table. There were textbooks, colored pencils, a half-eaten granola bar, and a phone. A sleek, black, expensive device, the kind of phone Sophia would have to scrimp and save for 6 months to even dream of owning. She pressed the home button. No password. The screen illuminated, displaying a photo of the girl hugging a dark-haired man in sunglasses. There was only one contact listed in the phone. Papa. Sophia's thumb hovered over the name, paralyzed by indecision. Every fiber of her being screamed that this was a terrible idea. This girl reeked of money. Serious money. The kind of family that had a phalanx of lawyers on speed dial and a penchant for asking pointed questions and pointing fingers at people like Sophia when things went sideways. But the girl's pulse was fading fast. Sophia pressed call. It rang once, twice. Then a voice answered, low, controlled, and with an edge so sharp it could probably cut diamonds. Luna, where are you? Not, hello. Not who is this? Just immediate, laser-focused intensity. Sophia's throat constricted. This isn't Luna. I think Luna is your daughter. I'm calling because, who is this? The voice dropped several degrees colder, turning to something dangerous. Where is my daughter? My name is Sophia Carter. I'm a waitress at Mel's Diner on West Oakley. And your daughter, she just collapsed. She's breathing, but barely. Her pulse is weak. And I think it's her heart. Is she conscious? No. Pause. Sophia could hear muffled voices in the background. Then the distinct sound of a car door slamming shut. Did you call an ambulance? The man demanded, his voice barely controlled. Someone's calling right now. Keep her airways clear. Don't move her unless you have to. I'm 10 minutes away. The line went dead. Sophia stared at the phone, her heart pounding against her ribs. Something about that voice sent a knot of unease twisting in her stomach. It wasn't just authority. It was the kind of voice that expected to be obeyed without question. The kind that didn't issue warnings or ask twice. She banished the thought and knelt beside the girl again. Luna. At least now she had a name. Hang on, Luna, Sophia whispered, gently holding the girl's small, cold hand. Your dad's coming. Just hang on. The girl's eyelids fluttered weakly, but didn't open. Sophia had witnessed this before. This exact, heart-wrenching scene. The pale, almost translucent skin. The labored, raspy breathing. The shallow, uneven rise and fall of the tiny chest. Emma had looked exactly like this the night she died. The memory slammed into Sophia with the force of a runaway train. Her own daughter lying helpless in a sterile hospital bed. Machines beeping incessantly. Doctors uttering clinical terms like cardiomyopathy and genetic condition. And then the endless, hollow apologies. If we'd caught it earlier, they'd said. I'm sorry, they'd repeated, over and over, until the words were stripped of all meaning. Sophia had been holding Emma's hand when her little heart finally gave out. She'd been utterly powerless then. She wasn't powerless now. Come on, sweetie, Sophia murmured, carefully monitoring Luna's pulse with 2 fingers pressed against her delicate wrist. Stay with me, just a few more minutes. In the distance, the mournful wail of sirens began to cut through the rain-soaked night. But before the ambulance could arrive, a different sound shattered the relative calm. The sharp, piercing screech of tires on wet asphalt. Multiple vehicles. Sophia glanced up through the diner's rain-streaked windows. 3 black SUVs had screeched to a halt outside, effectively blocking the entire street. Car doors swung open in perfect unison. Men in dark, impeccably tailored suits emerged into the rain, and Sophia's blood turned to ice water when she saw what they were carrying. Guns. The elderly couple gasped in unison and instinctively ducked under their table, seeking some semblance of cover. The diner door burst open with a crash, and 4 men strode in. They moved with the synchronized precision of seasoned soldiers, their eyes scanning the room with a predatory intensity. One of them spoke into a radio. Location secured. Then he walked in. Sophia knew instantly that this was Papa. He was tall, somewhere in his mid-40s, with dark hair swept back from his forehead and a face that looked like it had been meticulously carved from marble. His suit probably cost more than her beat-up car. But it was his eyes that made Sophia's breath hitch in her throat. Dark, intense, and currently locked onto the small, still form of the little girl lying on the floor. In 3 swift strides, he was kneeling beside Luna, his hand gently cupping her face. Luna, Bambina, can you hear me? His voice, so cold and commanding on the phone, now cracked with something raw and desperate. One of his men started to move toward Sophia, his expression hard. Step back, ma'am. But Sophia didn't budge. She kept her fingers pressed against Luna's wrist, monitoring her faltering pulse, her other hand gently holding the girl's. Her heart rate is dropping. The ambulance is almost here, but we need to. I said step back. The man reached for her arm, his grip tightening. Touch her and you'll regret it, Marco. The voice was quiet, almost a murmur, but it instantly froze everyone in place. Papa hadn't looked up from his daughter, but his words carried the weight of absolute authority. The man named Marco immediately retreated. Sophia met Papa's gaze, and for a fleeting moment, she forgot to breathe. Up close, she could see the fear flickering beneath the carefully constructed facade of control. The same all-consuming fear she'd felt the night Emma collapsed. You're the one who called, he said, his voice devoid of inflection. Not a question, Yes. You know CPR. I have nursing training. He gave a short, curt nod. Then don't leave her side. Red and blue lights flashed outside, painting the diner in an alternating strobe, as the ambulance finally pulled up. But Sophia couldn't shake the nagging feeling that calling this man, whoever he was, might have been the biggest mistake of her life. Or maybe, a small voice whispered in the back of her mind, it was the beginning of something neither of them could have foreseen. The paramedics pushed through the door with a stretcher and several equipment boxes. A young woman with her hair pulled back in a tight bun immediately dropped to her knees beside Luna. What happened? She asked, snapping on a pair of latex gloves. Cardiac episode, Sophia said quickly. Weak, irregular pulse, shallow breathing, lips cyanotic. She's been unconscious for about 8 minutes. The paramedic's eyebrows rose slightly. Civilians didn't usually throw around medical terms like cyanotic, but she didn't waste time asking questions. Her partner, a stocky man with a graying beard, was already setting up an oxygen mask. Papa, Sophia still didn't know his real name, moved back exactly 1 inch to give them room to work, but his hand never left Luna's shoulder. His jaw was clenched so tightly that Sophia could see the muscle jumping beneath his skin. We need to transport immediately, the female paramedic said, quickly checking Luna's vitals. Sir, are you the father? Yes. Does she have any medical conditions we should know about? He hesitated for a fraction of a second. No, nothing diagnosed. Sophia's head snapped toward him, her eyes widening in disbelief. That hesitation, she'd heard it before. From parents who suspected something was terribly wrong with their child, but hadn't wanted to face it, to acknowledge it. From parents who'd been desperately ignoring symptoms because admitting them made it real. The paramedics lifted Luna onto the stretcher with practiced efficiency. The oxygen mask covered half of her small face, making her look even more vulnerable. We're taking her to Chicago Memorial, the bearded paramedic announced. You can follow in your vehicle. I'm riding with her. Papa's tone made it clear that this wasn't a request. It was an order. Sir, there's limited space. I'm riding with her. The two paramedics exchanged a quick, silent glance. The female one nodded curtly. Fine, but only you. Sophia grabbed her worn coat from behind the counter. I'm coming too. Marco, the suited guard, stepped directly into her path, effectively blocking her way. Ma'am, that's not necessary. We can handle. She knows me. Sophia didn't raise her voice, but something in her tone, a quiet steel, made Marco pause. When she wakes up in that ambulance, scared and confused, she's going to see strangers and guns and her father, who looks like he's about to break something. She needs someone calm, someone who isn't falling apart. She had meant it as an insult, but Papa's eyes flashed dangerously. You think I can't? I think you're terrified. Sophia cut him off, meeting his intense stare without flinching. I think you love that little girl more than anything in this world. And I think that's exactly why you're the last person who should be trying to keep her calm right now. The diner fell into absolute, unnerving silence. Marco's hand instinctively moved toward his jacket, where his gun was undoubtedly holstered. Another guard muttered something under his breath in Italian that sounded suspiciously like a curse. The elderly couple under the table held their breath, praying they wouldn't become collateral damage. Sophia's heart hammered against her ribs, threatening to burst, but she didn't look away from Papa's face. She'd already lost everything that truly mattered 8 years ago. What could this man possibly do to her that would be worse than that? Papa stared at her for what felt like an eternity. Then, impossibly, the corner of his mouth twitched ever so slightly. You have a smart mouth, he said quietly, his voice deceptively calm. I have an honest mouth. There's a difference. Another beat of silence hung heavy in the air. Then Papa turned to his men, his voice leaving no room for argument. She rides with us. Marco looked like he'd been slapped across the face. Boss, we don't know anything about her. She saved my daughter's life. Papa's voice dropped to a lethal softness that sent shivers down Sophia's spine. Question my judgment again, Marco, and we'll have a different conversation. Marco's face visibly paled. Yes, sir. The female paramedic raised her hands in a gesture of surrender. Look, I don't care who's coming, but we need to move now. The girl's heart rate is dropping. Everything happened in a blur after that. Sophia found herself squeezed into the back of the speeding ambulance, wedged between a mountain of medical equipment and Papa's broad-shouldered frame. The doors slammed shut with a resounding thud, and the siren wailed to life, its piercing cry echoing through the night. Luna looked impossibly small and fragile on the narrow stretcher. Her dark hair spread across the stark white pillow. The paramedic, her name tag read J. Richardson, worked quickly and efficiently, inserting in 4-line and attaching monitor leads to Luna's chest. Papa watched every movement with laser-like focus, his hands clenched into tight fists. Sophia gently placed her hand over Luna's small, cold fingers, offering a silent gesture of comfort. "Hey, sweetie," she murmured softly, even though she knew the girl couldn't hear her. "You're okay. We're getting you help." The monitor beeped erratically, its frantic rhythm filling the cramped space. Richardson frowned at the screen, her expression concerned. "Her rhythm's all over the place." "What does that mean?" Papa demanded, his voice tight with anxiety. "It means we need to get her to a cardiologist fast." Sophia's stomach plummeted. She'd heard those exact words before in another ambulance another lifetime ago. The ambulance hit a particularly nasty pothole, and everyone lurched violently. Papa's hand shot out to steady the stretcher, preventing Luna from being jostled. His other arm automatically braced Sophia against the wall, preventing her from falling. For a split second, she was pressed against him, close enough to feel the raw tension radiating through his entire body. "Sorry," she muttered, quickly pulling back. He didn't respond, didn't even acknowledge her presence. His eyes were locked on Luna's pale face, and Sophia saw something in his expression, a profound and agonizing helplessness that made her chest ache. It was the unmistakable look of a man watching his entire world slowly slip away, utterly powerless to stop it. She knew that look intimately. She'd worn it herself. "She's strong," Sophia said quietly, breaking the tense silence. "Stronger than she looks." Papa's jaw worked, his muscles clenching and unclenching. "How would you know?" "Because we kids don't walk into strange diners alone at night and order soup like they own the place. She's a fighter." He glanced at her sharply, something unreadable flickering across his face. Then, he looked back at Luna, and Sophia could have sworn she saw his hand trembling almost imperceptibly. The ambulance screeched to a halt at the emergency entrance of Chicago Memorial. The doors flew open, and a team of doctors and nurses swarmed the stretcher, their movements precise and coordinated. Sophia jumped out of the ambulance but immediately found herself blocked by 2 of Papa's imposing guards, who had followed closely behind in the SUVs. "Ma'am, you should go home now," one of them said, his tone not unkind but firm. Sophia looked past them, past the flashing lights, to where the medical team was quickly wheeling Luna through the automatic doors of the emergency room. Papa was striding alongside the gurney, a dark and ominous shadow. Every logical bone in her body screamed at her to walk away, to turn back. Go back to her tiny, empty apartment. Forget this night ever happened. Stay in her own lane. But then she remembered Luna's small hand clasped tightly in hers, the way the little girl had gripped her fingers with surprising strength. And she remembered Emma, and the promise she'd made at her daughter's grave, that if she ever had the chance, any chance at all, to save another child, she wouldn't fail. "No," Sophia said simply, her voice resolute, and walked past the guards before they could react. Behind her, she heard one of them mutter into his radio, "Boss, the waitress is following you in." She didn't hear the response, but no one physically tried to stop her. The emergency room was a scene of controlled chaos, a whirlwind of hurried movements and hushed commands. Sophia stood pressed against the wall, trying to stay out of the way, as doctors and nurses swarmed around Luna's bed, their faces etched with focused intensity. Machines beeped and hummed in a discordant symphony. Someone called out blood pressure numbers, the words echoing in the sterile environment. A tall doctor with silver hair, radiating an air of quiet authority, barked orders about EKG readings and cardiac enzymes. His voice cutting through the din. Papa stood rigidly at the foot of the bed, as motionless as a marble statue, his presence radiating a palpable tension. His men had formed a tight perimeter around the room, their watchful eyes scanning the surroundings. The hospital staff seemed to be pointedly ignoring them, pretending not to notice the small army of armed guards. Sophia suspected that people didn't argue with men carrying guns, even in a busy hospital. "We need family medical history," the silver-haired doctor said, not looking up from his electronic tablet. "Any history of heart disease, arrhythmia, sudden cardiac events." Papa's silence stretched on for too long, becoming almost deafening. The doctor finally looked up, his expression impatient. "Sir, I need answers if you want me to help your daughter. Her mother died of a heart condition." The words came out flat, emotionless, devoid of any discernible feeling. 6 years ago. The doctor's expression softened slightly. "What kind of condition?" "I don't know the name." She collapsed. "They said her heart just stopped working properly." Sophia's breath hitched in her throat. She stepped forward before she could consciously stop herself, her voice barely above a whisper. "Hypertrophic cardiomyopathy." Every head in the room turned toward her, their faces a mixture of surprise and curiosity. The silver-haired doctor frowned, his gaze sharp. "Who are you?" "The woman who found her," Papa said quietly, his voice laced with a subtle warning. "She has medical training." Had Sophia quickly corrected him. "I dropped out of nursing school, but my daughter died of HCM when she was 7. "The symptoms?" She gestured toward Luna. "The sudden collapse, the irregular heartbeat, the way she turned pale. It's exactly the same." The doctor studied her intently for a long moment, assessing her credibility. Then he nodded to a nurse, his decision made. "Run a full cardiac panel. I want an echocardiogram and genetic markers for HCM. Move her to imaging." As they wheeled Luna toward the door, a nurse touched Sophia's arm, her expression apologetic. "Ma'am, you'll need to wait outside." "No," Sophia said firmly, refusing to move. "Hospital policy. She stays." Papa's voice cut through the room like a honed blade, brooking no argument. The nurse looked at the doctor, seeking guidance. The doctor looked at Papa and his small army of armed bodyguards. He sighed, his shoulders slumping slightly. "Fine. But stand in the corner and don't touch anything." Sophia followed them silently down the hallway to the imaging room, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and adrenaline. She watched through the large glass window as they carefully positioned Luna's small body under the echocardiogram machine, the wand moving smoothly across her chest, capturing real-time images of her heart. Papa stood beside her, so close she could hear his breathing, carefully controlled, but noticeably too fast. "What's her name?" Sophia asked quietly, breaking the tense silence. He didn't take his eyes off his daughter, his gaze unwavering. "Why?" "Because I can't keep calling you Papa in my head." A pause, heavy with unspoken emotion. "Lorenzo. Lorenzo Vitali." The name hit Sophia like a splash of ice water, sending a shiver down her spine. Even she, who paid little attention to the news, who worked double shifts and went straight home, had heard that name. Lorenzo Vitali, the man the newspapers had dubbed the Wolf of Chicago. The one the mayor publicly condemned while privately, rumor had it, paying protection money. She called a crime boss. She'd yelled at a crime boss. She had told a crime boss he was falling apart. Her hands started to shake, the tremors barely perceptible. "You're scared now?" Lorenzo observed, his tone not mocking, but simply stating a fact. "Wouldn't you be? Most people are smart enough to be scared from the beginning." He finally looked at her, his dark eyes piercing. "You told Marco he'd regret touching you. You told me I was falling apart. Either you're very brave or very stupid. I was focused on saving your daughter. I didn't have time to be afraid." And now, Sophia met his intense gaze without flinching. "Now, I'm still more worried about Luna than about you." Something flickered across his face. A fleeting expression of surprise, perhaps, or even a grudging respect. Before he could respond, the doctor emerged from the imaging room, his expression serious. "Mr. Vitali, we need to talk." They moved to a small consultation room, its walls painted a sterile, impersonal white. Lorenzo sat down heavily in one of the chairs, his movements weary. Sophia started to quietly leave, sensing the need for privacy, but he gestured for her to stay. The doctor pulled up a series of images on his computer screen. Your daughter has hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. The walls of her left ventricle are significantly thickened. I know what it is, Lorenzo said quietly, his voice tinged with a barely suppressed emotion. My wife had it. They said it was genetic. It is. There's a 50% chance it passes from parent to child. The doctor's voice softened slightly, his expression sympathetic. I'm sorry. If it's caught early, we can manage it with medication and lifestyle changes. But Luna's case is already advanced. She'll need a beta blocker, possibly an ICD, an implantable cardioverter defibrillator, to regulate her heart rhythm. Lorenzo's hands gripped the armrests of the chair so hard that his knuckles turned white. Will she live? With proper treatment and monitoring, yes. But, Mr. Vitali, the doctor hesitated, his gaze searching. Has Luna been experiencing any symptoms? Fatigue? Dizziness? Chest pain? She never said anything. Kids often don't. They think feeling tired is normal. But we need to know, has her behavior changed recently? Has she been withdrawn or stopped talking? The words came out barely above a whisper, almost as if he were afraid to voice them aloud. 3 months ago she just stopped. A few words here and there, but mostly nothing. The doctor nodded grimly, his face etched with concern. That's not uncommon with chronic illness in children. Depression, anxiety. They often manifest as selective mutism. Sophia's heart clenched with a sharp pang of sympathy for the little girl. This child had been suffering in silence, her heart literally failing, and no one had known, no one had noticed the subtle signs. Can I see her? Lorenzo asked, his voice barely audible. She's being moved to a room now. We'll keep her for observation. Start her on medication. Lorenzo was already moving toward the door, his urgency palpable. Luna's new room was private and quiet, a sterile sanctuary filled with the gentle hum of machines. She looked impossibly fragile against the crisp white sheets, surrounded by a tangle of wires and tubes that ran from her small body to various monitors. Sophia hung back near the door, sensing this was a private moment, but Lorenzo turned and gestured for her to come closer. Come. They approached the bed together, their footsteps silent on the polished floor. Lorenzo sat in the chair closest to Luna, his movements gentle, and reached for her small hand. Sophia stood at the foot of the bed, giving them space, her heart aching for both of them. Luna's eyelids fluttered weakly, then slowly opened. Her dark eyes were unfocused at first, confused and disoriented. Then they landed on her father's face. Sophia watched the little girl's expression carefully, waiting to see a flash of recognition, a sign of relief, a glimmer of joy. Instead, Luna's eyes widened with something that looked almost like fear. She instinctively pulled her hand away from Lorenzo's, her small body recoiling slightly. Then, her gaze found Sophia, and everything changed in an instant. Luna's face crumpled, her lower lip trembling, and tears spilled down her cheeks, leaving wet streaks on her pale skin. Her hand reached out, not to her father, but across the expanse of the bed, grasping desperately towards Sophia. Sophia moved without thinking, her instincts taking over, and gently took the small, trembling hand in hers. Luna's lips moved, forming words so quiet Sophia almost missed them. Don't go. The first words the little girl had spoken in months. Sophia looked at Lorenzo and saw something break behind his eyes. A crack in his carefully constructed facade of control, a glimpse of raw, unfiltered pain. He stood abruptly, turning away from the bed, his shoulders rigid, his back to them both. Mr. Vitali, I'll be outside. His voice was rough, barely controlled. He walked out of the room without looking back, leaving Sophia and Luna alone in the sterile silence. Luna's grip on Sophia's hand tightened, her fingers clinging with surprising strength. And Sophia understood with terrible clarity that she'd just become tangled in something far more complicated than a simple medical emergency. She'd stepped into the broken pieces of a family she didn't understand, a world she knew nothing about, and a little girl had just chosen a complete stranger over her own father. Sophia stayed with Luna for 2 long hours, holding her hand while the little girl drifted in and out of sleep, her small body exhausted from the ordeal. Every time Luna's eyes fluttered open, they sought Sophia first, anxiously checking to make sure she was still there, that she hadn't abandoned her. A nurse came in to check Luna's vitals and adjust the medication dripping into the 4-line. She smiled warmly at Sophia. "You're a good mother." "I'm not her mother," Sophia said quietly, gently correcting her. The nurse's smile faltered, her eyes widening slightly. "Oh, I just assumed. Her father's outside." The nurse glanced toward the door, where one of Lorenzo's guards stood silently like a watchful statue, his presence a subtle reminder of the power dynamics at play. Her smile disappeared entirely, replaced by a polite but distant neutrality. "Right. Well, the girl seems calm with you here. That's what matters." After the nurse left, Sophia gently extracted her hand from Luna's grip, careful not to disturb the sleeping child. The little girl was sleeping soundly now, her breathing steady and even, the color slowly returning to her pale cheeks. The monitor showed a regular rhythm, a reassuring sign that the medication was working. Sophia needed coffee, a bathroom, and maybe to call her boss at the diner to explain why she'd disappeared in the middle of her shift, leaving the lunch rush in chaos. She slipped quietly out of the room, her footsteps barely audible on the polished floor. Lorenzo was in the waiting area, sitting alone on a plastic chair despite the 3 guards positioned strategically around the room's perimeter. He wasn't on his phone, he wasn't reading a magazine. He was just staring blankly at the floor, his hands clasped tightly between his knees, his posture radiating exhaustion and defeat. He looked up slowly when Sophia approached, his eyes shadowed with fatigue. "She's sleeping," Sophia said softly, breaking the tense silence. "The nurse said her vitals are stable." Lorenzo nodded silently, his expression unreadable. An awkward silence stretched between them, thick with unspoken words and unresolved emotions. Sophia shifted her weight from one foot to the other, feeling increasingly out of place. "I should probably head home," she said hesitantly. "My shift at the diner." "Sit." It wasn't quite an order, but it was close enough. Sophia hesitated for a moment, then slowly lowered herself into the chair beside him, her body tense. Up close, she could see the full extent of the exhaustion etched on his face, the dark shadows under his eyes, the faint shadow of stubble on his jaw. He looked older, much older, than he had just a few hours ago. "She hasn't spoken to me in 3 months, Lorenzo said quietly, his voice barely above a whisper, his gaze still fixed on the floor. "Not more than a few words. I thought she was angry with me." He stopped abruptly, his jaw clenching. "I didn't know she was dying." "She's not dying," Sophia said firmly, her voice laced with conviction. "She has a condition. It's manageable." "My wife managed it too," he said softly, "until she didn't." Sophia didn't have an answer for that, no comforting platitudes to offer. Lorenzo reached inside his expensive jacket and pulled out a thick, sealed envelope. He set it carefully on the small table between them, the gesture formal and awkward. "For what you did tonight." Sophia stared at the envelope, her brow furrowed in confusion. Even without opening it, she knew what it contained. I could tell it was stuffed with cash. A lot of cash. "I don't want your money, Mr. Vitali. It's not about want. You saved my daughter. That deserves compensation." "I didn't save her for money." "Then why did you save her?" He turned to look at her directly. "You don't know her. You don't know me. You could have just called 911 and walked away." Sophia met his gaze because she's a little girl and she needed help. That's reason enough. Lorenzo studied her face like he was trying to solve a complicated puzzle. Then he pushed the envelope closer to her. "Take it anyway. Consider it a thank you." Sophia pushed it back. "You don't fix people with cash, Mr. Vitali. Your daughter doesn't need your money. She needs you to figure out why she's so scared of you that she won't even talk to you." The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. One of the guards, a younger man with sharp features, took a step forward. "Hey, you can't talk to him like..." Lorenzo held up one hand. The guard froze mid-sentence. "Everyone out," Lorenzo said quietly. Now his men exchanged glances. Marco opened his mouth to protest. Out! They filed out of the waiting room, though Sophia could see them taking positions just outside the door, probably still listening. Lorenzo leaned back in his chair, and for the first time that night, Sophia saw something that might have been amusement in his eyes. "You're either the bravest woman I've ever met," he said, "or you have a death wish." "I'm a waitress from the South Side who buried her only child 8 years ago," Sophia said. "What exactly do you think you can threaten me with that's worse than what I've already lived through?" The amusement vanished from his face. "Your daughter, the one with HCM, Emma? She was 7. Sophia's voice stayed steady even as her chest tightened. "We couldn't afford the treatment, the surgeries. By the time we got her into a program for low-income families, it was too late." Lorenzo was quiet for a long moment. "I'm sorry. Are you? Because I look at Luna and I see my daughter. I see a little girl who has a father with enough money to save her life 1,000 times over. And she still ended up in my diner alone, eating soup, having a cardiac episode because nobody noticed she was sick." Sophia stood, her hands shaking with anger she didn't know she'd been holding. "So no, Mr. Vitali, I don't want your money. I don't want your gratitude. I want you to do better by that little girl before you lose her the way I lost mine." She turned to leave. "Sophia," he stopped her, but she didn't turn around. "Why did you come to the hospital?" Lorenzo asked. "You made the call. You did your part. You could have stayed at the diner." Sophia looked back at him over her shoulder. "Because she held my hand and because I made a promise to my daughter that if I ever had a chance to save another child, I wouldn't walk away." She left before he could respond. Outside in the hallway, she nearly collided with Marco, who was leaning against the wall with another guard, a muscular man with a scar across his eyebrow. "That was stupid," Marco said, not threatening, almost concerned. "Nobody talks to the Don like that." "Maybe someone should," Sophia muttered, heading toward the elevator. She heard Marco's voice behind her, quieter now, speaking to the scarred guard. "She's dangerous, Nico." "How?" "She's a waitress. Because she makes him soft. You saw how he looked at her. How he listened to her." A pause. "She's a liability." The elevator dinged open. Sophia stepped inside, her heart pounding. As the doors closed, she caught one last glimpse of the waiting room. Lorenzo was still sitting in the same position, staring at the envelope on the table. He hadn't moved to pick it up. Sophia leaned against the elevator wall, suddenly exhausted. What was she doing? She'd just lectured a Mafia boss about parenting. She'd rejected his money. She'd made enemies of his guards. The smart thing would be to go home, never look back, and pray Lorenzo Vitali forgot she existed. But Luna's whispered words echoed in her mind. Asterisk, don't go. Asterisk, and Sophia knew with sinking certainty that she wasn't done with this family yet. Whether that would save her or destroy her remained to be seen. Sophia's apartment was dark when she finally got home at 3 o'clock in the morning. She didn't bother turning on the lights, just dropped her keys on the counter, and collapsed onto her second-hand couch. Every muscle ached. Her uniform smelled like coffee and stale sweat. Her hands were still shaking. She should sleep. She had to open the diner in 5 hours. Instead, she found herself walking to the small bookshelf in the corner of her living room. Her fingers found the frame immediately, even in the darkness. She touched it so many times over the years that she knew exactly where it was. Sophia carried it to the window where street light filtered through the blinds. Emma smiled up at her from the photograph, 7 years old, missing her 2 front teeth, wearing her favorite purple dress. They'd taken this picture at Navy Pier, one of the good days before the hospital stays became constant, before the word terminal entered their vocabulary. "I met a little girl tonight," Sophia whispered to the photo. "She has your condition, your smile, your dark hair." Her voice cracked. "She's so scared. And her father, he has all the money in the world to save her, but he doesn't know how to reach her." The photo didn't answer. It never did. Sophia set it back on the shelf and moved to her tiny kitchen. She made tea she didn't drink and stared at the wall until the sun started to rise. At some point, she made a decision. She called the diner at 6:30. Her boss Mel answered on the third ring. Sophia? Jesus. Where did you disappear to last night? Old man Henderson said there was an ambulance and guys with guns. I know. I'm sorry. A customer's daughter collapsed. I had to make sure she was okay. Is she? Sophia closed her eyes. She will be, Mel. I need a favor. I need the next 2 weeks off. Silence. Then, 2 weeks? Sophia, you've never taken more than 2 days off in 6 years. I know. I'm sorry. But this little girl, she needs help. And I'm the only one she'll talk to. Another long pause. You gonna tell me what's really going on? Probably better if I don't. Mel's diner. Mel sighed. 2 weeks. But you better come back, Carter. You're the only one who knows how to work the ancient coffee machine. Thank you. Sophia hung up and stared at her phone. Then, before she could second-guess herself, she pulled up the contact information from the hospital discharge papers they'd given her the night before. She texted the number listed as Patient Emergency Contact Father. Asterisk, this is Sophia Carter. I'd like to volunteer to help with Luna's care at the hospital. I have nursing experience and she seems comfortable with me. Let me know if this is acceptable. Asterisk, she hit send before her common sense could stop her. The reply came 30 seconds later. Asterisk, why? Sophia typed. Asterisk, because she needs someone who understands what she's going through and because I need to know I didn't walk away. Asterisk, 3 minutes passed. Then, asterisk, Chicago Memorial Room 347. Be there at 9 a.m. Lorenzo was standing outside Luna's room when Sophia arrived, talking in low tones with a man in an expensive suit. Not security this time. A lawyer maybe, or a business associate. They both fell silent when they saw her. We'll finish this later, Lorenzo said to the man, who nodded and left without a word. Lorenzo studied Sophia. She changed into jeans and a clean sweater, pulled her dark hair back in a ponytail. Without her diner uniform, she looked younger and tired. You didn't have to come, Lorenzo said. Yes, I did. My men can hire proper nurses, professionals with current credentials. Your men can hire 100 nurses, and Luna still won't talk to them. Sophia met his gaze. She talked to me. Lorenzo's jaw tightened. 2 words, which is 2 more than she said to anyone else in months. He couldn't argue with that. There are rules, Lorenzo said finally. You don't ask questions about my work. You don't talk to reporters. You don't repeat anything you see or hear. I'm here for Luna, not for you. Something shifted in his expression. That's why I'm saying yes. He opened the door to Luna's room. The little girl was awake, picking at her breakfast tray without enthusiasm. Her eyes lit up when she saw Sophia. Actually lit up in a way they hadn't when Lorenzo entered the room. Hey, sweetie, Sophia said softly, approaching the bed. Remember me? Luna nodded. Then, in a whisper so quiet, Sophia almost missed it. You stayed. Sophia's throat tightened. I said I would, didn't I? For the first time, Luna smiled. Just a small curve of her lips, but it transformed her entire face. And Sophia's heart shattered. It was Emma's smile, the same shy, tentative expression Emma used to make when Sophia brought her favorite books to the hospital. The same hope mixed with fear that maybe, just maybe, things would be okay. Sophia had to look away for a moment, blinking hard. When she looked back, Luna was watching her with those 2 wise eyes. My daughter had a smile like yours, Sophia said quietly. Her name was Emma. Where is she? Luna's voice was barely audible. She's in heaven now. But you know what? Every time you smile, it's like getting to see her again. Luna processed this. Then she held out her hand. Sophia took it, settling into the chair beside the bed. Behind them, she heard Lorenzo move quietly to the window, giving them space but not leaving. The doctor says you'll need to take medicine every day, Sophia said gently. And we'll need to be careful about your heart. But you're going to be okay, Luna. Promise. Luna squeezed her hand. Don't go, she whispered again. I'm not going anywhere. Over the next few hours, Sophia fell into a rhythm she remembered from nursing school. She helped Luna eat, explained what each machine did in simple terms, distracted her during medication time with stories about the diner's quirky customers. Luna didn't say much, but she listened to every word, and slowly, gradually, she started to relax. At one point, Luna's eyes drifted to where Lorenzo stood by the window, still and silent. "That's your papa," Sophia said gently. "He's been very worried about you." Luna's expression shuddered immediately. She looked away. Sophia caught Lorenzo's eye. The pain in his face was unmistakable. For the first time in his life, Lorenzo Vitali had everything he needed to save someone he loved. Money, power, resources, and none of it mattered because what Luna needed wasn't something he could buy or intimidate into existence. She needed something he'd forgotten how to give. Sophia saw it clearly now. This wasn't just about a sick child and a scared father. This was about a man who'd built walls so high to protect his daughter that he'd accidentally locked himself out. And somehow, Sophia had been handed the key. 5 days passed. Sophia arrived at the hospital every morning at 8 and stayed until Luna fell asleep each night. She read to her from books Lorenzo's men brought, fairy tales mostly, though Sophia suspected they'd raided a bookstore and just grabbed everything in the children's section. She helped Luna with the breathing exercises the physical therapist recommended. She learned that Luna loved strawberries but hated grapes, that she was afraid of thunder, and that she could draw surprisingly well for an 8-year-old. The drawing started on day 3. A nurse had brought crayons and paper to keep Luna occupied. At first, the little girl just made abstract swirls of color. Then, she started drawing people. Sophia watched over Luna's shoulder as the picture took shape. A small figure in a hospital bed, a woman with dark hair holding her hand, and a tall man standing far away near the window. Luna drew the tall man in all black, like a shadow. "That's beautiful," Sophia said softly. "Is that your papa?" Luna nodded without looking up. "Why is he so far away in the picture?" Luna's crayon paused. Then she drew a thick black line between the man and the bed, a wall. Sophia's chest tightened. She glanced at Lorenzo, who sat in his usual spot by the window, pretending to read something on his phone, but his jaw was clenched, and she knew he'd seen the drawing. The next day, Luna drew another picture. This time, all 3 of them were together. No wall, no distance, just a woman and a man on either side of a little girl, all holding hands. Luna colored the woman's hair dark brown. The man's suit was still black, but this time she drew a tiny smile on his face. She never showed the picture to Lorenzo, just folded it carefully and tucked it under her pillow. On day 6, everything changed. Luna had been doing well, talking more, though still mostly to Sophia. She'd said good morning to one of the nurses and had even laughed at a joke from Dr. Richardson. Lorenzo had been encouraged. Sophia could see it in the way he sat a little closer to the bed, how he tried to engage Luna in conversation. "The doctor says you might be able to come home soon," Lorenzo said that afternoon, his tone lighter than usual. "Your room is ready. I had them paint it. What color do you want?" Luna stared at her coloring book, not answering. "Luna." Lorenzo's voice sharpened just slightly, just the edge of impatience bleeding through. "I asked you a question." The little girl flinched. It was subtle, just a slight hunch of her shoulders, a quick intake of breath. But Sophia saw it, and from the way Lorenzo went rigid, he saw it too. Luna's hand trembled as she gripped her crayon tighter. "Purple," she whispered, not looking at him. "I want purple." "Good." Lorenzo's voice was carefully controlled now. "Purple it is." But the damage was done. Luna had pulled into herself again, the small bit of openness from the past few days evaporating like morning mist. Lorenzo stood abruptly. "I need to make a call." He left the room and Sophia could hear him in the hallway speaking in rapid Italian. The words were harsh, angry, but not directed at Luna, at himself, maybe, or at the situation. Sophia waited until Luna seemed calmer, then followed Lorenzo into the hall. He was leaning against the wall, one hand pressed against his forehead. His guard stood at a respectful distance. "Mr. Vitali," she said. He looked up, and Sophia saw exhaustion carved deep into his features. "She's afraid of me," he said flatly. "My own daughter is afraid of me." "She's not afraid of you," Sophia said carefully. She's afraid of your tone. Your intensity. It's the same thing. No, it's not. Sophia moved closer, lowering her voice. You talk to her the way you probably talk to your men. Like you're giving orders. Like you expect immediate obedience. I'm her father. She should. She's 8 years old and her heart almost stopped. Sophia cut him off. She doesn't need a boss right now, Mr. Vitali. She needs a dad. Lorenzo stared at her. Something flickered behind his eyes. Anger, maybe, or pain. You think I don't know that? I think you've spent so long being the man everyone fears that you've forgotten how to be the man your daughter needs. The words hung in the air between them. One of the guards, Marco, shifted uncomfortably. Boss, you don't have to listen to. Shut up, Marco. Lorenzo didn't take his eyes off Sophia. His voice was quiet. Dangerous. You have no idea what you're talking about. Don't I? Sophia stepped closer, meeting his gaze. I've watched you for 6 days. You sit in that room like you're attending a business meeting. You check your phone every 10 minutes. You give her choices like they're negotiations. But you never just sit with her. You never ask her how she feels. You never tell her you're scared, too. I can't show weakness. She's not your enemy. Sophia's voice rose, and she forced herself to take a breath. She's a little girl who almost died, who's terrified of dying like her mother did, and she needs to know that her father is human, that he's scared, that he loves her more than whatever empire you've built. Lorenzo's hands clenched into fists. For a moment, Sophia thought she'd gone too far. The look in his eyes was the same one she'd seen that first night, cold, lethal. The look of a man who'd done terrible things and would do them again. Then his shoulders sagged and the facade cracked. I don't know how, he said quietly. The admission seemed to cost him everything. I don't know how to be what she needs. Everything I touch, I destroy. Everyone I love. He stopped, his voice breaking. My wife died because I was too late getting her to the hospital, too busy with a meeting, too focused on protecting territory to notice she was getting worse. And now Luna. Luna is alive, Sophia said firmly. And she's going to stay alive. But not because you have money or power. Because you're going to learn to be her father instead of her protector. They're the same thing. No. Sophia shook her head. Protection is about control. Being a father is about connection. And right now you're so busy trying to control everything that you can't connect with anyone. Lorenzo looked at her for a long moment, then said so quietly she almost missed it. Teach me. Sophia blinked. What? You know how to reach her? I don't. He met her eyes, and for the first time she saw no walls, no defenses. Just a desperate father. Teach me how to talk to my daughter. Before Sophia could answer, a small voice came from the doorway. Papa? They both turned. Luna stood there in her hospital gown, bare feet on the cold floor, holding the folded drawing in her small hand. Luna, you shouldn't be out of bed, Lorenzo started. But Luna walked past him and handed the drawing to Sophia. Can you give this to him? She whispered. I'm scared to. Sophia unfolded the paper, looking at the picture of the three of them together, holding hands. She looked at Lorenzo, saw him staring at the drawing with an expression she couldn't quite read. Then Sophia did something that surprised them both. She took Luna's hand and placed it in Lorenzo's. Tell him yourself, sweetie, Sophia said gently. He's not as scary as you think. Luna's hand felt impossibly small in Lorenzo's palm. He stared down at it, his daughter's fingers so fragile against his callous skin. The drawing trembled in his other hand. Luna, he said, and his voice cracked on her name. She looked up at him with those dark eyes so much like her mother's, waiting, hoping, terrified. Sophia stepped back, giving them space, but not leaving the hallway. This picture, Lorenzo managed. Is this what you want? For us to be together? Like before Mama died? Something broke in Lorenzo's chest. He knelt down, bringing himself to Luna's eye level. Up close, he could see how much weight she'd lost. How the hospital gown hung off her small frame. How had he not noticed? I'm sorry, he said. The words felt foreign in his mouth. Lorenzo Vitali didn't apologize. Not to rivals, not to associates, not to anyone. But this was his daughter. I'm sorry I didn't see you were sick. I'm sorry I scared you. I'm sorry. I don't know how to. Luna threw her arms around his neck. Lorenzo froze, stunned. Then, carefully, like he was holding something made of glass, he wrapped his arms around her and held on. She was crying. So was he. Sophia turned away, giving them privacy, her own eyes burning with tears. For 3 minutes, father and daughter held each other in that hospital hallway while guards pretended not to notice, and nurses walked quietly around them. When they finally pulled apart, Luna touched her father's face with one small hand. You're not scary, Papa. You're just loud. Lorenzo huffed out something between a laugh and a sob. I'll try to be quieter. Okay. He stood, scooping Luna into his arms like she weighed nothing. Let's get you back to bed before the nurses yell at me. They won't yell at you. Everyone's scared of you. Not everyone. Lorenzo glanced at Sophia, who was wiping her eyes. Some people are too stubborn to know better. Sophia smiled despite herself. They were halfway back to Luna's room when Lorenzo's phone buzzed. He ignored it. It buzzed again and again. Luna felt him tense. You have to go, she said quietly. Not a question. No, I'm staying right here. The phone rang. Lorenzo pulled it out, ready to turn it off, but the name on the screen made him stop. Dante urgent. Dante was his consigliere. 20 years of loyalty. The man who handled problems Lorenzo couldn't afford to ignore. He never called unless it was life or death. Lorenzo looked at Luna, then at Sophia. I need to take this. I'll be right back. He set Luna gently on her bed and stepped into the hallway, pressing the phone to his ear. This better be important. Boss, we have a problem. Dante's voice was tight. The Barbieri family knows about Luna. Every muscle in Lorenzo's body went rigid. How? Someone talked. Maybe a nurse. Maybe someone saw the convoy. Doesn't matter. Marcus Barbieri is making moves. My sources say he's planning something. What kind of something? The kind where he uses your daughter to settle old scores. Dante paused. He knows she's sick, Lorenzo. He knows she's vulnerable, and he knows you'll do anything to protect her. Lorenzo's free hand clenched into a fist. Marcus Barbieri had been a thorn in his side for 3 years, a rival family trying to muscle into Lorenzo's territory. They'd had an uneasy truce, but truces were fragile things in their world. What are you suggesting? Lorenzo asked, though he already knew. Send her away tonight. I have a place in Italy, a villa, secure, off the books. We can have her on a plane in 2 hours with a medical team. She'll be safe there until we handle Barbieri. For how long? However long it takes. Weeks, maybe months. Lorenzo looked through the window into Luna's room. She was showing Sophia another drawing, actually smiling, actually talking. After months of silence, his daughter was finally coming back to him. No, Lorenzo said. Boss. I said no. I'm not sending her away. Then you're putting her life at risk. Dante's voice hardened. You know how Barbieri operates. He won't come at you directly. He'll go after what you love. And right now, that girl is the biggest. Okay. Here is the English, U.S., translation, followed by the rewritten version in the write and expand deeply mode as requested. English, U.S., translation asterisk. Target in Chicago. So we eliminate the threat. It's not that simple. Barbary has connections. The commission won't approve a hit without cause. If you move against him now, you start a war. Then we start a war. Lorenzo Dante rarely used his first name. Think about this. A war means chaos, means attention from the feds, means Luna becomes collateral damage. Send her to Italy. Keep her safe. Then we can deal with Barbie properly. Lorenzo closed his eyes. Everything Dante was saying made tactical sense. Sending Luna away was the smart move, the logical move. It's what any good strategist would do. But he just held his daughter for the first time in months. He just heard her laugh. How could he send her away now? He ended the call and walked back into the room. Sophia looked up from Luna's drawing and something in his expression made her stand. What's wrong? Nothing. Lorenzo forced his features into neutrality. Just business. But Luna was watching him with those two perceptive eyes. You're lying. You have your lying face, sweetheart. Are you sending me away? The question hit like a bullet. Lorenzo hesitated too long. Luna's face crumpled. No, I don't want to go. Papa, please. It's just for a little while. Just until. No. Luna grabbed Sophia's hand, tears streaming down her face. I won't go without Sophia. She's my safe place. She's the only one who. She dissolved into sobs, clutching Sophia like a lifeline. Sophia wrapped her arms around the little girl, shooting Lorenzo, a look that could have melted steel. What did you do? There are people who want to hurt her. Lorenzo's voice was strained. People who will use her to get to me. The only way to keep her safe is to rip her away from the one person she's finally opened up to. Sophia's voice shook with fury. She just started talking again. Lorenzo, she just started trusting you, and your solution is to send her to another country. You don't understand the world I live in. I understand that you're about to make the same mistake again. Sophia's eyes blazed. Choosing your empire over your daughter. Putting business before family. And this time she's awake to see you do it. The words landed like physical blows. Lorenzo looked at his daughter, sobbing, terrified, begging not to be sent away, and saw his wife's face the night she died. Saw himself arriving at the hospital too late, too consumed with protecting his interests to notice she'd been dying for months. History repeating itself. Marco appeared in the doorway. Boss, Dante says, we need to move now. The plane is ready. Luna's sobs intensified. Papa, please don't make me go. Lorenzo stood frozen, torn between every instinct he had. Protect his daughter by sending her away, or keep her close and risk losing her forever. For the first time in his life, Lorenzo Vitali had no idea what to do. And the clock was ticking. Lorenzo made his decision. Call off the plane, he said to Marco, not taking his eyes off Luna. We're staying, boss. Dante said, I don't care what Dante said. Tell him to double security here. Triple it. I want men on every floor, every entrance, every window. Nobody gets near this room without my approval. Marco hesitated, then nodded and stepped into the hallway, already on his phone. Lorenzo knelt beside Luna's bed. I'm not sending you away. Promise. Luna threw her arms around his neck again, her small body shaking with relief. Thank you, Papa. Thank you. Sophia watched the reunion, her expression unreadable. She should have felt relief. Luna was staying. That was good. But something cold settled in her stomach as she watched Lorenzo's guards multiply outside the room. This wasn't over. Whatever threat he'd mentioned, it was real, and she'd just become part of it. Sophia went home that night for the first time in a week. Her apartment felt foreign to quiet after the constant beeping of hospital monitors. She took a shower, changed into clean clothes, and was making coffee when someone pounded on her door. Miss Carter, I know you're in there. Sophia recognized the voice. Mr. Kowalski, her landlord. She opened the door to find him standing in the hallway, arms crossed, his weathered face set in angry lines. Mr. Kowalski, it's 11 at night. You got 30 days to get out. Sophia's stomach dropped. What? Don't play dumb. I know who you've been spending time with. Lorenzo Vitali. He practically spat the name. His guys came through my building last week asking questions about you. You think I don't know what that means? A child was sick. I was helping. I don't care if you were saving the Pope himself. I got a wife, Miss Carter. I got grandkids who visit. I can't have Mafia business in my building. He pulled out a folded paper from his jacket. 30 days. It's all legal. Already talked to my lawyer. He dropped the eviction notice in her hand and walked away. Sophia stood in her doorway, staring at the paper, feeling her carefully constructed life crumbling around her. She'd lived in this apartment for 8 years. It was where she'd brought Emma home from the hospital for the last time, where she'd packed away her daughter's clothes after the funeral, where she'd learned to live with the grief, and now it was gone because she'd saved a little girl's life. Lorenzo found out the next morning. Sophia didn't tell him. She wouldn't have, but apparently his men had been watching her building. They reported everything. I can fix this, Lorenzo said as soon as she walked into Luna's hospital room. I'll talk to your landlord, or I'll buy the building, or I'll set you up in a better place, somewhere safe, secure. No. Sophia's voice was flat. Sophia, be reasonable. I said, no. She set her bag down with more force than necessary. I'm not your charity case, Mr. Vitali. I'm not another problem for you to throw money at. This isn't about money. You're in danger because of me. I'm homeless because of you. The words came out sharper than she intended. I'm losing my home because I got tangled up in your world. So, forgive me if I don't want to be even more dependent on you. Luna looked between them, her eyes wide. Sophia's leaving. No, sweetheart. Sophia's voice softened immediately. I'm not leaving you. I just need to find a new place to live. You can live with us, Luna said brightly. Right, Papa? Our house is really big. The suggestion hung in the air like a grenade. That's not appropriate, Sophia said firmly. Your papa and I barely know each other. I have guest houses, Lorenzo said. Separate from the main residence, fully furnished, secure. You wouldn't be living with me, just on the property. So I'd be your employee. You'd be under my protection. I don't want your protection. Sophia's voice rose. Don't you get it? This is exactly what I'm trying to avoid. Being another person who lives off Lorenzo Vitali's generosity, who owes him, who belongs to him. I don't own people, Lorenzo said coldly. Don't you? Sophia rounded on him. Your men jump when you speak. Nurses trip over themselves to accommodate you. My landlord is terrified of you. Everyone in your orbit belongs to you in one way or another. That's not fair. Isn't it? Sophia stepped closer, her hands trembling. My daughter died because I couldn't afford treatment. Do you know what that's like? Watching your child slip away because you're poor, because you don't matter to anyone with power. Lorenzo's jaw tightened. Sophia, I worked 3 jobs. I begged hospitals for help. I applied for every program, every grant, every charity. Her voice cracked. And you know what I learned? People like you don't help people like me unless there's something in it for you. Rich men don't use their power to save dying children. They use it to build empires and protect their interests. That's not what I'm doing here. Isn't it? Sophia's eyes blazed. You're not keeping Luna at the hospital because it's best for her. You're keeping her here because sending her away makes you look weak. This whole situation, the guards, the guns, the threats, it's all because of choices you made. And now Luna and I are both paying the price. The room went silent. Luna had tears streaming down her face. Don't fight, she whispered. Please don't fight. Sophia's anger deflated immediately. She moved to Luna's side, taking her hand. I am sorry, sweetie. I didn't mean to upset you. Lorenzo stood rigid by the window, his back to them both. You're wrong about one thing, he said quietly. I'm not keeping Luna here for my reputation. I'm keeping her here because sending her away would break what's left of her heart. He turned, and Sophia saw something raw in his expression. You think I don't know what I am, what I represent. I've built everything I have on fear and violence. I know that. But Luna is the one good thing I've ever created. And I'm trying. His voice broke slightly. I'm trying not to destroy her, too. Sophia looked at him, really looked, and saw the truth. He wasn't a monster. He was just a man who'd made terrible choices and was drowning in the consequences, just like she was. I don't want to live in your house, she said finally. But I need time to find somewhere else. Can your men? I don't know. Make sure my landlord doesn't throw my stuff on the street before I figure it out. Lorenzo nodded. Already done. And I'm paying my own rent wherever I end up. Fine. And I'm not your employee. I'm Luna's friend. There's a difference. I understand. Sophia took a shaky breath. Good. Luna squeezed both their hands. Are you done being mad? Sophia managed a weak smile. Yes, sweetie. We're done. But as Lorenzo's phone buzzed again, Dante calling for the 3rd time that hour, Sophia knew the truth. They weren't done. This was only the beginning. It happened on Luna's 10th night in the hospital. The doctors had said she could be discharged in 2 days. Her medication was working. Her heart rhythm had stabilized and she'd gained back 3 pounds. Sophia had spent the afternoon helping her pack her drawings and books, talking about what color curtains she wanted for her purple bedroom. Everything felt almost normal. Sophia should have known better. It was just past midnight when Lorenzo's phone rang. He'd been dozing in the chair by the window, something Sophia had never seen him do before. He'd been sleeping at the hospital every night, refusing to leave Luna's side despite Dante's increasingly urgent calls to handle business. Lorenzo answered quietly, listened for 30 seconds. Then his entire body went rigid. When his voice was deadly calm, "How many?" Sophia looked up from her book. Luna was asleep, her small chest rising and falling steadily. Lorenzo stood, moving toward the door. He spoke in rapid Italian to Marco, who'd been standing guard outside. More men appeared, 6 of them all armed. "What's going on?" Sophia asked, keeping her voice low. "We're moving Luna." Lorenzo was already disconnecting her monitors, careful not to wake her. "Now what?" the doctors said. "The Barbie family knows she's being discharged in 2 days. They're planning to hit us during transport." Lorenzo's hands moved with practiced efficiency, gathering Luna's things. "We're moving her tonight instead. They won't be ready." Sophia's heart hammered. "You're using your daughter as bait. I'm getting her out before they can hurt her by doing exactly what they'd expect." "Lorenzo, this is glass," exploded inward. The window shattered in a shower of crystalline fragments as bullets tore through the room. Sophia's instincts took over. She threw herself across Luna's bed, covering the little girl's body with her own. Luna woke, screaming. More gunfire. The machines beside the bed sparked and died as bullets ripped through them. Sophia felt something hot graze her shoulder, but didn't dare move. She pressed Luna's face against her chest, shielding her from the chaos. "Stay down," Lorenzo roared. He had pulled a gun from somewhere when had he armed himself and was returning fire through the shattered window. Outside in the hallway, more gunfire erupted. Shouts in Italian. Someone screaming. Luna was sobbing against Sophia's chest, her small body shaking uncontrollably. "Sophia, Sophia, Sophia, I've got you, baby. I've got you." Sophia's voice somehow stayed steady even as terror flooded her veins. "Close your eyes. Don't look." The door burst open. 3 men in black masks stormed in, guns raised. Marco and 2 other guards met them heated. The firefight was brutal, deafening in the small hospital room. Sophia couldn't see what was happening. Didn't want to see. Just held Luna tighter and prayed. One of the masked men went down, then another. Then something changed in the air. A shift from defensive to predatory. Lorenzo moved like death itself. Sophia caught glimpses between her closed eyes. Lorenzo disarming a gunman with brutal efficiency. Breaking the man's arm with a sickening crack. Putting a bullet in another man's knee. Then his chest. Moving with a precision that came from years of violence. Each motion economical and lethal. This wasn't self-defense. This was execution. The 3rd masked man tried to run. Lorenzo shot him in the back. Then silence ringing. Awful silence broken only by Luna's muffled sobs and someone's labored breathing. Sophia finally dared to look up. The room was destroyed. Bullet holes peppered the walls. Medical equipment sparked and smoked. 3 bodies lay on the floor in spreading pools of blood. And Lorenzo stood in the center of it all, guns still raised. His expensive suit splattered with crimson. His hands were shaking, not from fear, from adrenaline, from rage barely contained. "Boss, we need to move." Marco was bleeding from his arm, but standing. More could be coming. Lorenzo lowered his gun. His eyes found Luna still pressed against Sophia's chest. "Luna, it's over," he said, his voice rough. "You're safe now." Sophia slowly released her grip, letting Luna sit up. The little girl's eyes were wide, unfocused with shock. They swept the room, the broken glass, the bodies, the blood, and landed on her father. On his hands, still gripping the gun covered in red. "Papa," her voice was tiny, broken. Lorenzo took a step toward her, holstering his weapon. "It's okay, Bambina. They can't hurt you now. I took care of." Luna screamed, not a scream of fear from the attack, A scream of pure terror directed at Lorenzo himself. She scrambled backward on the bed, pressing herself against Sophia. Her eyes locked on Lorenzo's blood-stained hands like they were vipers. "Get away!" Luna shrieked. "Get away from me!" Lorenzo froze. "Luna, I was protecting you. You killed them. You killed them." She was hyperventilating, her face turning pale. The heart monitor, the one machine still working, began beeping frantically. "Sweetheart, they were trying to hurt you. I saw you. I saw what you did." Tears streamed down Luna's face. "You're a monster. Mama said you were a monster, and she was right." The words hit Lorenzo like bullets. He staggered back a step, his face draining of color. Sophia wrapped her arms around Luna, feeling the little girl's racing heartbeat against her own chest. "Luna, you need to calm down. Your heart." But Luna was inconsolable, sobbing and shaking, her eyes still fixed on her father with absolute horror. Sophia looked at Lorenzo, saw the devastation in his face, the way his hands hung uselessly at his sides, still stained with blood, and something inside her snapped. "Get out," she said. Lorenzo blinked. "What? Get out of this room." Now Sophia's voice shook with fury. "You just traumatized your daughter to save her life. Congratulations, Lorenzo. You saved her body and lost her heart." "Sophia, I had to. I said, get out." Marco moved to intervene, but Lorenzo held up a hand. His face was a mask of stone, but his eyes were broken. He looked at Luna one more time. His daughter pressed against Sophia, still sobbing, still terrified of him. Then he turned and walked out of the room without a word. The door closed behind him with a soft click, and Sophia was left holding a shattered little girl in a room that smelled of gunpowder and blood, wondering if some things, some people, were too broken to ever be fixed. Outside in the hallway, she could hear Lorenzo's voice cold and empty. "Clean this up and find every member of the Barbie family. I want them to know what happens when they touch what's mine." Sophia closed her eyes and held Luna tighter. The war had just begun. Luna was moved to a different hospital across the city within an hour of the attack. This one had no windows in the patient rooms. Armed guards on every floor, metal detectors at every entrance. It looked less like a hospital and more like a fortress. Luna didn't speak for 3 days. Not to the nurses, not to the doctors, not even to Sophia. She just lay in bed staring at the ceiling, her small hands clutching the blanket. When Sophia tried to hold her hand, Luna would pull away, not roughly, but with a kind of defeated exhaustion that was somehow worse. On the 4th day, Dr. Richardson came in with test results and a grim expression. "Her heart rate is elevated again," he said quietly to Sophia, while Luna pretended to sleep. The stress from the attack triggered a relapse. "We're adjusting her medication." But he hesitated. "Where's her father?" "I don't know." Sophia hadn't seen Lorenzo since that night. His men were everywhere, but Lorenzo himself had vanished. "She needs stability. Come. Her heart can't handle this level of trauma." Dr. Richardson looked at the little girl in the bed. "Physically, she's recovering. Emotionally, I'm worried we're losing her." Sophia was worried about the same thing. Lorenzo sat alone in the hospital chapel. He'd been there for 2 hours staring at the simple wooden cross on the wall. He wasn't a religious man, hadn't stepped foot in a church since his wife's funeral, but he had nowhere else to go. His phone buzzed constantly. Dante calling, Marco calling, his lawyers, his accountants, his contacts in City Hall, everyone wanting to know what the next move was. Lorenzo had declared war on the Barbieri family the night of the attack. He'd mobilized every resource, called in every favor, prepared to burn their organization to the ground. But then he'd heard Luna screaming in his nightmares. "You're a monster. Mama said you were a monster, and she was right." His wife had said that the night before she died during one of their final arguments. She'd begged him to leave the life to take Luna and disappear somewhere safe. He'd refused. Said he had responsibilities, obligations, a kingdom to protect. She'd looked at him with such disappointment. "You're not building a kingdom, Lorenzo. You're building a prison. And one day Luna will see you for what you really are." She'd been right. "If I can't be the father she needs," Lorenzo whispered to the empty chapel, Then I don't deserve her. His phone buzzed again. This time he answered. Boss, we have a problem. Dante's voice was tight with urgency. The Barbary family is mobilizing. They're calling in allies from New York, from Miami. If we don't strike first, call them, Lorenzo said. What? Call Marcus Barbieri. Tell him I want a meeting. Silence. Then boss, if this is about negotiating terms of surrender, you know that I'm not surrendering. I'm declaring a truce. A truce? Dante's voice rose in disbelief. They just tried to kill your daughter. They attacked a hospital and you want to? Yes, Lorenzo. That's suicide. The other families will see it as weakness. Every crew that's been waiting for you to show vulnerability will move against us. We'll lose everything. I know. Another long silence. You're serious. Completely. Why? Lorenzo closed his eyes. Because I've built a kingdom out of fear, Dante. And it's time it fell. 30 minutes later, Lorenzo's inner circle gathered in a private conference room at the hospital. 6 men who'd been with him for years, who had helped him build his empire from nothing. Dante stood at the head of the table, arms crossed. Marco leaned against the wall, his injured arm in a sling. The others sat in various states of confusion and concern. Explain to me, Dante said carefully, why we're calling off a war we're positioned to win. Lorenzo stood by the window, this one reinforced with bulletproof glass. Because Luna saw me kill 3 men. Because she called me a monster. Because the doctors say the stress is destroying her heart. He turned to face them. Because I'm choosing my daughter over everything else. Boss, we can protect her. Marco said we can move her somewhere safe, somewhere the Barbie family can't touch her. And then we finish this fight. And what happens when I finish it? Lorenzo's voice was quiet but firm. I kill Marcus Barbieri and his brothers. Maybe his cousins, too. Maybe anyone who ever worked for him. And then what? Luna grows up knowing her father is a mass murderer. She grows up in hiding, surrounded by guards, never able to live a normal life. She becomes exactly what I've been trying to prevent. She's already in that life. Dante argued. The moment she was born into this family, that was her fate. Then I'm changing her fate by destroying everything we've built. Yes, Lorenzo met each man's eyes in turn. I'm calling off all operations, declaring a truce with every family, including the Barbieris. I'm stepping down. The room erupted. You can't just step down. The commission will never accept. You'll be killed within a month. Enough. Lorenzo's voice cut through the chaos. I've made my decision. Anyone who doesn't like it can walk away right now. No hard feelings. I'll make sure you're set up with someone who still has ambitions in this world. No one moved. I'm not asking you to follow me into retirement. Lorenzo continued. I'm releasing you from your obligations. All of you, your loyalty has been appreciated, but it's no longer required. Dante stared at him like he'd never seen him before. You're really doing this for an 8-year-old who won't even look at you. Yes. She might never forgive you for what she saw. I know. So, you're giving up your power, your protection, your life's work for nothing. Lorenzo thought about Luna's drawing, the one with all 3 of them holding hands, smiling. The one she'd hidden under her pillow and never showed him. Not for nothing, he said quietly. For the chance that maybe someday she won't be afraid of me anymore. Dante shook his head slowly. You're either the bravest man I've ever met or the biggest fool. Probably both. Lorenzo picked up his phone, set up the meeting with Barbie, and get our lawyers started on the paperwork. I want everything legitimate, everything clean, no loose ends. One by one, his men filed out of the room, some shaking their heads, others looking like they just witnessed something they didn't quite understand. Marco was the last to leave. He paused at rewritten version. Write and expand deeply. The targets hold up in Chicago. We take him out, end of story. It's not that simple, Lorenzo, Dante countered, his voice tight over the phone. Barbari's got connections that run deep. The commission won't sanction a hit like this without ironclad justification. Moving against him now means war. A full-blown, ugly war. Lorenzo Dante, a name he rarely used himself, considered the gravity of those words. Then we start a war, he stated. But the words lacked conviction. Think this through, Lorenzo. A war means chaos. Chaos attracts the feds like flies. That means Luna becomes collateral damage. She's vulnerable. Dante paused, letting the words sink in. Get her out of the country. Send her to Italy. Keep her safe, and then we can deal with Barbary properly, strategically. Lorenzo closed his eyes. The image of Luna's small face burned into his memory. Dante's assessment was chillingly accurate. Tactically, strategically, sending Luna away was the only viable option. Any strategist worth his salt would arrive at the same conclusion. But just moments ago, he had held his daughter, felt her small arms wrap around his neck. He'd heard her genuine, unrestrained laughter for the first time in what felt like an eternity. How could he possibly send her away again? He ended the call abruptly, the click echoing in his ear. He walked back into the hospital room, his heart heavy. Sophia looked up from the drawing Luna had been working on. A flicker of something, fear, perhaps premonition, crossed her face. She stood. What's wrong, Lorenzo? He forced his expression to remain neutral, a mask he'd perfected over years. Nothing, just business. But Luna, ever perceptive, was watching him with those incredibly sharp eyes. You're lying, Papa. Her voice was small, but firm. You have your lying face on. A slight tremor passed through her lower lip. Are you sending me away? The question struck Lorenzo like a physical blow, stealing the air from his lungs. He hesitated, a beat too long, and the hope vanished from Luna's face, replaced by a dawning horror. No, Papa, no. Her face crumpled, tears welling in her eyes. I don't want to go. Papa, please don't make me. It's just for a little while, Luna. Just until. He trailed off, unable to articulate the lie. Just until what? Until the war was over? Until he'd exacted his revenge? Until he was safe? None of it sounded convincing, even to himself. No! Luna cried, grabbing Sophia's hand, her small fingers digging into Sophia's skin. Tears streamed down her face, blurring her vision. I won't go without Sophia. She's my safe place, Papa. She's the only one who... She couldn't finish the sentence, dissolving into heartbroken sobs, clutching Sophia like a lifeline in a turbulent sea. Sophia immediately wrapped her arms around the little girl, offering a comforting embrace, shooting Lorenzo a look that could have melted steel. It was a look of pure, unadulterated fury, mixed with a heartbreaking sympathy for the child in her arms. What did you do, Lorenzo? Her voice was low, a dangerous warning. Lorenzo's voice was strained, barely a whisper. There are people who want to hurt her, Sophia. People who would use her to get to me. The only way to keep her safe is to rip her away from the one person she's finally started to open up to? Is that it? Sophia's voice shook, laced with disbelief. She just started talking again, Lorenzo. She's finally started trusting you, and your brilliant solution is to ship her off to another country? You don't understand the world I live in, Sophia. You have no idea what I'm up against. I understand that you're about to make the same mistake again. Sophia shot back, her eyes blazing with anger and a profound sadness. Choosing your damn empire over your own daughter. Putting business before family. And this time, she's awake to see you do it. She's old enough to realize what you're doing, Lorenzo, and it'll crush her. Her words landed like physical blows, each one a painful reminder of his past failures. Lorenzo looked at his daughter, sobbing, terrified, begging not to be sent away, and he saw his wife's face the night she died. He saw himself arriving at the hospital too late, too consumed with protecting his interests to even notice she'd been slowly dying for months. History, it seemed, was doomed to repeat itself. Marco appeared in the doorway, his face grim. Boss, Dante says we need to move now. The plane is fueled and ready to go. We're losing time. Luna's sobs intensified, turning into desperate gasps. Papa, please, please don't make me go. I beg you. Lorenzo stood frozen, caught in the crossfire of conflicting instincts. Protect his daughter by sending her away, shielding her from the violence that defined his life? Or keep her close, risking everything to hold onto the precious bond they were just beginning to forge? For the first time in his life, Lorenzo Vitali, the man who always had a plan, the man who controlled every situation, had absolutely no idea what to do. And the clock, as always, was ticking. He made his decision. "Call off the plane, Marco," he said, his voice firm, his eyes fixed on Luna's tear-streaked face. Marco hesitated, confusion clouding his features. "But, boss," Dante said. "I don't care what Dante said. Tell him to double security here. Triple it. I want men on every floor, every entrance, every window. Nobody gets near this room without my explicit approval. Understood?" Marco hesitated for another moment, visibly weighing his options, then nodded curtly and stepped back into the hallway, already pulling out his phone. Lorenzo knelt beside Luna's bed, reaching out to gently brush a stray strand of hair from her forehead. "I'm not sending you away, Luna," he said softly, his voice filled with a tenderness that few ever witnessed. "I promise you, Bambina." Luna threw her arms around his neck again, clinging to him with all her strength, her small body trembling with relief. "Thank you, Papa. Thank you, thank you." Sophia watched the reunion, her expression unreadable. A part of her should have felt relief. Luna was staying. That was undoubtedly a good thing. But a cold knot settled in her stomach as she watched Lorenzo's guards multiply outside the room, their presence a stark reminder of the danger that still loomed. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. Whatever threat he'd alluded to, it was undeniably real, and she, it seemed, had just unwittingly become a part of it. Sophia went home that night for the first time in a week, leaving Luna in Lorenzo's heavily guarded care. Her apartment felt strangely foreign, unnervingly quiet after the constant beeping and whirring of the hospital monitors. She took a long, hot shower, trying to wash away the tension and the lingering scent of antiseptic, changed into clean clothes, and was making a pot of coffee when a loud, insistent pounding echoed through her small apartment. "Miss Carter, I know you're in there. Open up." Sophia recognized the voice immediately. Mr. Kowalski, her landlord. She sighed, a sense of dread washing over her. She opened the door to find him standing in the hallway, his arms crossed over his chest, his weathered face set in harsh, angry lines. "Mr. Kowalski, it's 11 o'clock at night. What's going on?" He glared at her, his eyes filled with a mixture of anger and fear. "You got 30 days to get out, Miss Carter. Consider this your eviction notice." Sophia's stomach dropped, a cold, sickening feeling spreading through her. What are you talking about? Don't play dumb with me, Miss Carter. I know who you've been spending time with. Lorenzo Vitali." He practically spat the name, as if it were a curse. "His guys came through my building last week, asking questions about you. You think I don't know what that means? You think I'm stupid? A child was sick, Mr. Kowalski. I was helping her. That's all there is to it. I don't care if you were saving the Pope himself. I got a wife, Miss Carter. I got grandkids who come to visit. I can't have mafia business going on in my building. It's bad for everyone." He reached inside his jacket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. 30 days, he said, shoving the paper into her hand. "It's all legal. I already talked to my lawyer. Don't even think about fighting it." He dropped the eviction notice at her feet and turned, stomping angrily down the hallway. Sophia stood in her doorway, staring down at the crumpled paper, feeling her carefully constructed life crumbling around her like a sandcastle in a rising tide. She'd lived in this apartment for 8 years. It was where she'd brought Emma home from the hospital for the last, agonizing time. It was where she'd packed away her daughter's clothes after the funeral, each item a painful reminder of her loss. It was where she'd slowly, painstakingly, learned to live with the grief, to build a new life amidst the ruins of her old one. And now it was all being taken away, all because she dared to save a little girl's life. Lorenzo found out the next morning. Sophia hadn't told him. She wouldn't have, but apparently his men had been watching her building, their ever-present surveillance a constant reminder of his power and influence. They reported everything, down to the smallest detail. "I can fix this," Lorenzo said as soon as she walked into Luna's hospital room, his voice filled with a quiet determination. I'll talk to your landlord, or I'll buy the building. Hell, I'll set you up in a better place, somewhere safe, somewhere secure. No, Sophia said, her voice flat, devoid of emotion. Lorenzo frowned, his expression hardening. Sophia, be reasonable for once. This isn't your fault, but I need to make sure you are safe. I said no, Mr. Vitali, she said again, more forcefully this time. She set her bag down on the floor with more force than necessary, the sound echoing in the sterile room. I'm not your charity case. I'm not another problem for you to throw money at and make disappear. This isn't about money, Sophia. It's about your safety. You're in danger because of me. And I'm homeless because of you? She retorted, the words coming out sharper than she intended. I'm losing my home, the only place that's felt like mine in years, because I got tangled up in your world. So forgive me if I don't exactly want to become even more dependent on you. Luna looked back and forth between them, her eyes wide and worried. Sophia's leaving? She asked, her voice filled with concern. No, sweetheart, Sophia said, her voice softening immediately. She knelt beside Luna's bed, taking her hand. I'm not leaving you. I just need to find a new place to live, that's all. You can live with us, Luna said brightly, her face lighting up with excitement. Right, Papa? Our house is really, really big. You'll have your own room, and we can play every day. The suggestion hung in the air like a live grenade, loaded with unspoken implications. That's not appropriate, Luna, sweetheart, Sophia said firmly, shooting Lorenzo a warning glance. Your papa and I barely know each other. It wouldn't be right. I have guest houses, Lorenzo interjected, his voice carefully neutral. Separate from the main residence, fully furnished, completely secure. You wouldn't exactly be living with me, just on the property. It would ensure your safety and allow you to continue seeing Luna with ease. So, I'd be your employee then? I'd be under your protection, beholden to you. Is that what you're saying, Mr. Vitali? I don't want your protection, Sophia said, her voice rising with each word. Don't you get it? This is exactly what I'm trying to avoid. Being another person who lives off Lorenzo Vitali's generosity, who owes him everything, who... He turned and walked out the door. Boss, what are you going to do now? Marco asked. Lorenzo glanced towards the floor where Luna's room was, where she was lying, still refusing to see him. I'm going to figure out how to be the father she deserves, he said. Even if it kills me. Marco nodded slowly and left him alone. Left alone once more, Lorenzo removed his signet ring, the heavy gold band emblazoned with the Vitali family crest, the symbol of the authority he'd worn for 15 years. He set it down on the table and walked away without a backward glance. 3 weeks later, Luna was discharged from the hospital. The doctors were cautiously optimistic about her progress. Her heart was responding well to the medication. Her rhythm was stable. Physically, she was healthier than she had been in months. Emotionally, however, was a completely different story. She had started talking again to Sophia, to the nurses, even to Dr. Richardson. But whenever Lorenzo entered the room, she would fall silent, withdrawing into herself. She didn't scream anymore, didn't cry, just retreated into a polite, distant quiet that was somehow even worse than the terror she had previously exhibited. Lorenzo accepted it without complaint. He would sit in the corner of her room, never venturing too close, and tell her about the house, about the purple bedroom that was waiting for her, about the garden where she could plant flowers if she wanted, about the library he had installed with every book he could think of that she might enjoy. Luna would nod politely and say, "That's nice, Papa," in a voice utterly devoid of warmth. Then she'd turn back to Sophia and ask what story they were going to read next. On the day of Luna's discharge, Lorenzo's fleet of SUVs was gone. Instead, a single black sedan waited at the hospital entrance. No armed guards, no entourage, just a driver Sophia didn't recognize. "Where are your men?" Sophia asked as they loaded Luna's belongings into the trunk. "Gone." Lorenzo's voice was flat, devoid of emotion. "I released them from my service 2 weeks ago. Most of them have moved on to other families. He paused, then added, all of them. Marco's still around. Dante too. But they're not working for me anymore. They're just keeping an eye out until I'm completely clear of this life. Sophia looked at him, really looked at him. He'd lost weight. His suits, which were always immaculate, now hung slightly loose on his frame. The dark circles under his eyes suggested that he hadn't slept properly in weeks. You actually did it? She said quietly, a hint of disbelief in her voice. You walked away. I'm in the process, he replied. These things take time. Lawyers, paperwork, making sure I don't leave any loose ends that could pull me back in. He watched Luna climb into the car, his expression guarded. I won't let her see me like this, or put her in danger again. The drive to Lorenzo's estate was silent. Luna sat between Sophia and Lorenzo in the back seat, holding Sophia's hand tightly and staring out the window. When they arrived, the house was enormous. A sprawling property with meticulously manicured lawns and a grand fountain in the circular driveway. But despite its opulence, it felt empty, quiet, almost desolate. A housekeeper named Mrs. Chin greeted them warmly. She was a kindly, grandmotherly woman with a gentle demeanor. She showed Luna to her room. The walls were painted purple, just as he'd promised, and it featured a beautiful canopy bed and shelves already overflowing with books and art supplies. Luna managed a small smile. It's pretty, she said softly. Your papa picked everything out himself, Mrs. Chin said gently. The smile faded from Luna's face. Oh, she murmured, her voice flat. Sophia stayed for dinner, a meal that Mrs. Chin had prepared with obvious care and love. Luna ate a little, talked a little, but kept glancing at the door as if she longed to escape. After dinner, after Luna had gone to bed, Sophia found Lorenzo in his study. He was staring at the paperwork spread across his desk, but Sophia could tell that he wasn't really seeing it. I should go, Sophia said from the doorway, breaking the silence. Lorenzo looked up. His eyes filled with a weariness that went beyond mere exhaustion. Thank you for everything, he said. She's going to need time. I know, Sophia replied softly. He stood up, running a hand through his hair, a gesture that spoke volumes about his inner turmoil. I hired a child therapist, he said. She starts next week. And there's a tutor. Luna's missed too much school. And Mrs. Chin will be here whenever Luna needs anything. What about you? Sophia asked, her voice laced with concern. What about me? He repeated, his gaze distant. Where will you be? Lorenzo was quiet for a long moment, gathering his thoughts. Then he pulled an envelope from his desk drawer and handed it to her. What's this? Sophia asked, her brow furrowed with curiosity. 3 months' rent for an apartment, he explained. Not in my name. Nothing that ties back to me. Just so you have somewhere safe while you figure things out. He held up a hand before she could protest. It's not charity. Consider it payment for the time you spent caring for Luna. You lost your home because of me. This is me fixing my mistake. Sophia wanted to argue, wanted to tell him that she didn't need his help. But she did need it, and pride wouldn't keep a roof over her head. Thank you, she said quietly, taking the envelope. There's something else. Lorenzo hesitated, his gaze fixed on the floor. I'm leaving Chicago. Once everything is settled, probably another month or 2, I'm taking Luna and disappearing. New city, new name, clean start. Sophia's chest tightened, a knot of anxiety forming in her stomach. Does she know? She asked softly. Not yet, he replied, his voice barely a whisper. I'll tell her when it's time. He met Sophia's eyes, a flicker of vulnerability in their depths. I wanted you to know first, in case she asks for you. Where will you go? Sophia asked, her voice trembling slightly. I don't know yet, he admitted. Somewhere quiet, somewhere she can be normal. A ghost of a smile crossed his face, a brief glimpse of the man he might have been. Somewhere I can learn to be normal, too. Lorenzo, I know what you're going to say, Sophia said, her voice firm but gentle. That running won't fix what's broken between you. but staying here definitely won't. She'll always see this house, this city, and remember what I am, what I did. Sophia stepped closer, her eyes filled with compassion. Then don't vanish, she pleaded. Don't become another ghost. She has to grieve. What else can I do? He asked, his voice laced with despair. Become someone she can find again. Sophia's voice was firm, unwavering. Not the man you were. Not the Don or the monster or whatever you think you are. Just a father, a real one. Someone who shows up even when it's hard. Someone who doesn't run when things get difficult. Lorenzo looked at her with something like wonder, a glimmer of hope flickering in his eyes. You still have hope for me after everything you've seen? He asked, his voice laced with disbelief. I have hope for Luna, Sophia replied. And she needs you, not your money or your protection or your guilt. She needs her father to be brave enough to stay in her life, even if she pushes you away. And if she never forgives me, then at least you'll be there when she's ready to try. Lorenzo reached into his pocket and pulled out something. It was his signet ring, the heavy gold band with the Vitali crest. He'd been carrying it since the day he took it off. He placed it in Sophia's hand. What am I supposed to do with this? She asked, her brow furrowed in confusion. Keep it. Sell it. Throw it in the river, he said, closing her fingers around it. I don't need it anymore. That man, the one who wore that ring, he's dead. I'm trying to become someone else now. Sophia looked down at the heavy gold in her palm, then back at Lorenzo's face. He looked lighter somehow, as though a great weight had been lifted from his shoulders. He was still exhausted, still haunted, but no longer carrying the weight of an empire. Be someone worth finding, Sophia said softly, her voice filled with hope. Lorenzo smiled, really smiled for the first time since she'd met him. I'll try, he said, his voice filled with determination. Sophia left the estate that night and never went back, but she kept the ring. And sometimes, late at night, she'd wonder if Lorenzo Vitali had really managed to disappear into a new life, or if some ghosts were too substantial to ever truly fade away. 6 months later, Sophia stood outside Mel's diner at dawn, coffee in hand, watching the construction crew finish their work. The old building looked transformed. New windows, fresh paint, a modern awning. But the bones were the same. The booth where Luna had collapsed. The counter where Sophia had worked for 6 years. The place where everything had changed. Mel had sold it to her for a fraction of what it was worth. You saved a kid's life in my place, he'd said gruffly, signing over the deed. Seems right that you get to keep the magic going. Sophia had used every penny she'd saved, plus a small business loan, to buy it. She'd spent 3 months renovating, painting, choosing new equipment, and now finally it was ready. The sign installer climbed down from his ladder. All set, Miss Carter. Want to see? Sophia nodded, her heart in her throat, a mixture of excitement and apprehension churning within her. He flipped a switch, and the new sign illuminated against the purple-pink dawn sky. Luna's Light Cafe. The letters glowed warm and golden, chasing away the shadows. Sophia's eyes burned with tears, a complex mix of emotions threatening to overwhelm her. She'd named it after a little girl she hadn't seen in half a year. A little girl who'd vanished with her father into whatever new life they'd built together. She wondered if they were safe, if Luna was happy, if Lorenzo had managed to become the father he'd promised to be. She wondered if they ever thought about her. Opening day was chaos, but the best kind of chaos. Regular customers from the old diner came back, curious about the changes. New faces appeared, drawn by the fresh paint and the intriguing name. Sophia hired 2 servers, young women from the neighborhood who reminded her of herself at that age, and spent the morning training them on the ancient coffee machine that she'd refused to replace. By noon, every booth was full. By 2 o'clock, Sophia was exhausted and exhilarated, and more alive than she'd felt in years. She was restocking napkins when she noticed the envelope taped to the register. Her hands stilled, her heart skipped a beat. It was thick, cream-colored paper, expensive. Her name was written across the front in elegant handwriting she didn't recognize. Sophia's heart began to race, her breath catching in her throat. She waited until the afternoon rush died down, until the diner was quiet again, before opening it. Inside was a photograph, a little girl on a beach. She was older now, taller, her dark hair longer and sun-streaked. She was laughing, arms stretched wide, waves crashing behind her. The joy on her face was so pure, so unguarded, that Sophia's breath caught in her throat, tears welling in her eyes. Luna. Behind her in the photo, just at the edge of the frame, was a man building a sandcastle. His face was turned away from the camera, but Sophia knew the line of his shoulders, the way he moved. Lorenzo. Her hands shook as she unfolded the note that had been tucked behind the photo. Dear Sophia, it read, Luna wanted to send you a drawing, but I convinced her a photograph might be more meaningful. This was taken 3 weeks ago in a small town on the Oregon coast. We've been here for 4 months. It's quiet, peaceful, the kind of place where nobody asks questions and everybody knows her name anyway. Luna goes to school now, public school. She has friends. She talks about them constantly. About Emma. Yes, she named her best friend Emma and cried when she told me why. And about her art teacher. And about the boy who sits behind her in math class and pulls her hair. She still takes her medication every day. Still sees her cardiologist monthly. But she runs now. She laughs. She's not afraid anymore. And she talks to me. Not just polite words, but real conversations. Yesterday, she told me about a fight she had with Emma and asked my advice. And actually listened to what I said. It was the best conversation of my life. She asks about you sometimes. Wonders if you're okay, if you found a new apartment, if you're still working at the diner. I found out about Luna's Light Cafe from an old friend who still has connections in Chicago. I won't say I'm not still watching from a distance. Old habits die hard. But I want you to know you were right about everything. I didn't need to vanish. I needed to become someone worth finding. Someone who shows up. Someone who stays even when it's hard. I'm not that man yet, but I'm trying every day. I'm trying. Luna drew something for you after all. It's in the envelope. For the woman who taught me how to live, not rule. Thank you for saving my daughter. Thank you for saving me. L. Sophia pulled out the second item in the envelope with shaking hands. It was a drawing, unmistakably Luna's style. 3 figures holding hands on a beach. A woman with dark hair, a little girl in the middle, and a man on the other side. But this time there were no walls between them, no distance. And everyone was smiling. At the bottom, in careful child's handwriting, My family. Love, Luna. Sophia pressed the drawing to her chest and let herself cry. Big, gasping sobs of relief and joy and bittersweet loss all tangled together. They were okay. Luna was happy. Lorenzo was trying. That was enough. That had to be enough. The sun was setting when Sophia finally walked to the front door of the cafe. The street was quiet now, the dinner rush still an hour away. She looked at the drawing in her hand one more time, then carefully pinned it to the bulletin board behind the counter, right next to the old photograph of Emma. 2 little girls, 2 chances to save someone. 2 pieces of her heart given away, and somehow, impossibly, making her more whole. Sophia flipped the sign in the window from closed to open. Outside, the cafe's golden lights reflected on the wet pavement from an earlier rain. The sign above glowed against the darkening sky. Luna's Light Cafe. And Sophia understood, finally, what Lorenzo had been searching for all along. Not power, not control, not kingdoms built on fear. Just this, a small light in the darkness. A place where broken people could find their way home. A second chance to get it right. Lorenzo had found his light in a quiet beach town, learning to be a father. Luna had found hers in laughter and friendship and a life no longer shadowed by fear. And Sophia had found hers here in this diner, serving coffee and hope to anyone who walked through her doors. 3 lives changed by 1 terrible night and 1 impossible choice. 3 lights burning in different places, but somehow still connected. Sophia smiled as the first evening customers began to arrive, the bell above the door chiming its welcome. The light Lorenzo could never find was shining now in all their worlds. and it would keep shining as long as there were people brave enough to choose love over fear, connection over control, and second chances over giving up. Luna's light, Emma's memory, Sophia's hope, all of it glowing golden in the gathering dusk, chasing away the shadows.